Hello, it's Carla again. The third skill that we're looking at this week, the third skill in my 5 empathic mindfulness practices, is burning contracts. We looked at grounding and focusing. These are 2 skills together in the first week. We looked at defining boundaries last week. And now we're looking at a very important process called burning contracts, which I learned at a little school where I learned some meditative practices. And this is the thing I kept because it was so wonderful and it worked so well for me in terms of being a hyper-empathic person, because I picked up so much and I didn't know how to let it go. Grounding certainly helped. Defining my boundaries certainly helped. But once I had my grounding and my boundaries, I could see all of the nonsense that was inside my psyche. It was a mess. There's a book that I love called The Eyes of Horus, and in it one of the characters says to the other, you know, so many people, their souls are like the streets after a parade filled with all manner of things that other people have discarded. And that was my soul. It was just full of messages and ideas and shame and emotions and problems that I picked up while I was in my super hyper empathic state, ungrounded, unfocused, undefined. And I was just sort of a mess inside. Burning contracts helped me start to identify what was mine and what wasn't. And you know, the things that helped me do that were my emotions. And if something wasn't mine, it started shaking really well. So it became clear, because I was having strong and sort of painful emotions about a behavior or a situation or a thing that was happening. And I would know not that I was having a problem, not that the emotions were a sign of a problem, but the emotions were trying to help me identify the problem and the thing that didn't belong to me, right? So for instance, let me give you a simple one. If you're a lady person, if you're a female, you've seen media since you were, before you were born, about how you need to look and what you need to weigh. And let's talk about what you need to weigh. As we've seen, there is a place for women's weight to be. And nobody says the actual numbers, but we find it out by how much people will attack a slender woman and how much people will attack a woman who has more weight on her. So there's a very, very slender, that's a joke, a slender range of weight that a woman can have. Outside of this range, she will be attacked viciously in much media. And so if you're a lady person, now men get it too, but not as viciously as women do. And women will do it to each other, right? You'll find women's magazines that are just like, nah. So most women walk around with this bizarre, weight ideal that doesn't belong to them. It may not belong to their family, but it certainly belongs to the culture. And so they bring it in and they start trying to apply this gruesome, grotesque weight behavior onto their own poor bodies, right? So I had some of that. I didn't have a lot because I tend to be like a feisty kind of a person, screw you, but it was there. So when I would get to a certain weight, I would feel less good about myself. And then when I would, get to another weight, I'd be like, now, I'm functional and I'm a fabulous person. It was nonsense. And so as I started to look at that weight behavior, I realized, wow, this is not my idea. I don't know how to eat and I don't know how to dress myself outside of these weird media-generated ideas. So I put up a contract, and with burning contracts, you can do this on paper if you're more of a in this world kind of a person. I'm a writer, so I live in the imaginal world. For me, that's play. That's where I do things best. But for some people, they need a piece of paper. So you take a piece of paper and you can put it down in front of you and start writing out everything that's going on about weight. Right? So for me, I would unroll a parchment, kind of like an oldie-timey parchment, and I would unroll it. And I would have it be kind of a warm color, like an ivory, so that it's not reflecting onto me, but it's going to accept. And so I might just put the word weight, WEIGHT, weight. And then I would wait, W-A-I-T, to see what my emotions would do, right? And so I'd put weight out on the contract and just be patient. Boom, there's rage, right? And so rage would come out, screw you. Then there would be some grief because I can't be that weight. You know, I'm 5'4" on a low gravity day, and I'm never going to be this tall, slender, whatever that you're supposed to be, right? And jealousy and envy for the people who can do that, for people who can eat whatever they want, and it doesn't matter, and they're going to be that person, you know, just the whole thing. And I start processing this concept of weight onto the contract until I get to a place where, look at all that, oh my word, weight had a huge amount of stuff in it. It had stuff in it from when I was 2.5 years old. Like, you know, there's so much about weight that I was carrying. It was a weight about weight that I was carrying. And I move it all out so that I can look at it and kind of separate from it, right? So it's not here, stuck on my body, stuck in my eating behavior, stuck in how I dress. It's out here. And when I get to a place where I feel sort of done or tired, or maybe I feel like crying, or just like, whew. And remember, sadness is about letting go. So if I'm crying, nice, because I'm letting go. I just see, and sometimes like with a situation with weight, I'm going to need to move that first contract over and make another one. Blah, 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 move all the stuff out. Then another one. And I become aware of my individual emotional responses to that enforced media nonsense about what women need to weigh, right? And how they're going to be valued if they're in that slender place where you're not too thin and you're going to be attacked, where you're not too fleshy and you're going to be attacked, right? That is a straitjacket. And in my psyche, it's not acceptable, right? I'm still going to hit a lot of messages as I go through life about the unacceptability of women outside this tiny, probably it's a 10 or 15 pound range. No, it's a 10-pound range of how you must look, right? So that is a cruel thing, right? So it's cruel. It doesn't have a space in my psyche. Thank you very much, right? So I might have 17, contracts, filled with all the stuff that I've been taking in, or that's been pressed into my psyche by the media and by other women and by men and by just freaking everything, right? So it all goes out. And when I feel a sense of, whew, okay, all right, that's cool, I roll up each of these parchments, and I pretend to tie them. Well, I don't pretend to tie them. I tie them, because the whole thing is imaginal, right? So I tie them. So each one, I tie them. So I can't see what's on them anymore. I tie them. My whole psyche is watching this behavior. All of my emotions are watching this behavior. Everything that's in me that picked up those messages in the first place is watching this behavior, right? So I've just moved it all out. I've made it very clear that these are not things that I want to have anymore. This is not a situation I want to be involved in anymore. It never worked and never will. Not for me, right? And I roll up each of them. Say there's 17 of them. I roll them up. And knowing where my boundaries are, I've done this inside my boundaries, right? This is my issue that I've picked up. It's my streets after a parade, right? Everybody's streets after a parade filled with all manner of things that other people have discarded. Everyone has their own discards, right? But these are mine. So this is inside my boundary. And I take each of them and I throw them out of my boundary. Boom, boom, boom. And I throw them over there and I destroy them, or burn them with whatever level of emotion I feel, right? So if I'm feeling grief about it, I'll burn them in a funeral pyre. If I'm feeling just like, whatever, I'm done with that, poof, I just poof them out. If I'm feeling rage, I like take my Sigourney Weaver, I burn them, with this intensity. Screw you, you're gone. And now me and my psyche have some more room. All that stuff went out and I moved it out. And so my psyche sees, okay, in this place where we've set up our boundary, with our own grounding, with our focusing, in this place, there's not room anymore for that kind of toxic weight nonsense behavior, right? There's no room for that in here. So I'm going to go back to the behavior because it's everywhere. You can't go anywhere without seeing something talking about women being a certain weight and that makes them better in every possible way, right? Everything is better because they're at this weight, or everything is a failure because they're at this or this weight, right? So I'm going to see it constantly. It's going to come at me constantly. And I may fall back into it. So, I turn around and I look in the mirror and I notice, oh my gosh, I've got flesh like a human being. And suddenly, I'll get sort of depressed, or I'll feel shame. And some part of me will go, really? Now, some part of me will go, really? And I'll go, yeah, it's my butt. Everybody needs to just get their focus off my butt. And then I go through the rest of my day, right? But I start to have choice. I start to have a choice point in what my beliefs are. And it's my emotions that tell me what's going on, right? I just put out the word weight, W-E-I-G-H-T, and then let my emotions speak to it. And as they did, I became aware of the contours of that situation. I became aware of maybe where that came from. Whose voice was that? Where did I see that? What happened, right? And basically with burning contracts, you can go through, 6 or 8 years of therapy on an issue in, 5 minutes, right? You can work it all out because you're in the area of the genius, which is your emotions. You're in the area of your motivation, your movement, and the foundation for everything you do. You're in the place where you make these decisions and where you take on these ridiculous ideas that seem like a good thing at the time, right? So anything that you want to look at, and you can even do you can even create a contract for something that you're not currently having a problem with. You're just sort of like, I want to see what's in there. And you either do it on the paper. Now, if you're doing this practice on paper, you would roll up the actual physical paper. Maybe you would crush it, or you could tie it. And then you could recycle it. You could throw it across the room, and then go get it and put it in the fireplace. Or you could go outside, safely and set it on fire. Whatever makes sense to you. You could bury it. Like you could burn it, pour water on it, bury it, dig it up, burn it again, and bury it again. You can just do whatever your psyche and whatever you feel needs to be done to get that done. Now, I talked about a fairly simple thing, which is weight. But I did burning contracts with a very painful thing, which was the early training I got while I was being molested. And I was molested from the age of late 2s, 3 to the age of 4 or 5, right? So this is the time I was creating my sense of self, my sense of gender, my sense of how life works, how people behave. I was developing language, and I had a lot of language problems. I still do, but not to that extent. So in the foundational developmental stage of my life, I got information that was not only cruel and toxic, but would eventually endanger my life completely. I think I was 10 when I had my first suicidal urge. So this information was grotesquely dangerous to me. It was horrendous. And burning contracts with that information it wasn't just like, throw it and boom. It was like the 1812 overture around my psyche for a good couple of months while I burned these contracts. And it was like, boom, dun, 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 dun. It was incredible fires and conflagrations and, destruction everywhere as I used my emotions to take back my life, to take back my soul, to take back my gender expression, to take back my sexuality, to take back my language, to take back my development, right? So burning contracts is great for little things, but if you have training in your psyche that is dangerous to you, your emotions know it. And so I could put up a picture of myself at 3, and just put it there and wait, and the emotions that would come out were like, ah, incredibly intense emotions, and I would just let them come out. And as they came out, I saw the dead wrongness of what I had been taught to do and who I had been taught to be in the presence of someone else's toxic illness. And so I was able to, with burning contracts, take back my life. I should say, with burning contracts, I was able to hear my emotions, who helped me take back my life. Right? So burning contracts is a nice little practice, or you can use it for the big stuff. And if you've got the big stuff, you will probably need the support of a counselor, right? But it's an amazing process. And you can also use it, as I was saying before, you can take up a little thing. Like, how about if I just put a little thing? I don't have any little things. How about my connection to house cleaning? Just something like that. And see what's in there. Or things that you constantly forget to do, right? I forgot to do that again. I would put a contract up and see that thing that I forgot to do. What's in there, right? And from your behaviors, you can ask your emotions, what is that about, right? And you can have, burning contracts can be a key into the very truth of your psyche. And so from your little behaviors, you might call them Freudian slips or whatever, put it up on a contract and see what's there. And your emotions that exist in the area of the imaginal, right? Emotions love images, they love ideas, they love concepts, they love the imaginal world. If you give, your emotion a contract to look at, it will go, cool, she's listening. How about this? Let's look at that. Let's look at that. And you can become not just aware, but self-aware. And not just a person who isn't damaged by, for instance, the messages of weight, that slender, tiny little time. This is the only time you're acceptable as a female, is within this weight class or whatever. You're not only not susceptible to that, but you are also not going to visit it upon others, right? Knowing who you are, knowing what that ideology and what that stricture does to people's souls, you certainly don't allow it in your own, right? But you also don't visit it upon others. So burning contracts certainly helps you get yourself to a place where you're actually who you are. And as I say, if you know how you feel, you'll know who you are. You'll know who you are. Your emotions will tell you exactly who you are and exactly what's true for you, right? But you also will know that other people are undiscovered countries, and you are not going to visit that kind of abuse on them. I guess that dress looks okay, or you won't add to the problems of other people. You won't be the person in the parade who discards things and gets them all over other people. You will be a mindful, empathically mindful presence in the world. And if so, let's hang out. It's fun to be with people who know who they are and who are not, their psyche is not just filled with the garbage that they picked up from wherever, but they begin to articulate and identify what values and what ideas and what behaviors make sense to them as individuals, and they become themselves. The empathic mindfulness practices have a lot of secret magic in them, and the secret magic in burning contracts is it can help you become who you are, regardless of what happened to you. It can help you become who you are. I'll see you next week.